Hello folks, I'm Sam Boating and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about the firmware update that Lumix has just put out there for the 3 new cameras. And I've seen many people talking and asking about the S5IIX and the S5 Mark II firmware updates that are supposed to be coming out to get, the flow up and everything that we could get in those cameras. Yeah, no answer for that. And many people have asked me, and I'm like, I'm not directly connected to Lumix. So guys, stop asking me because I don't know. Ask to the guys that are connected to Lumix or to Lumix itself. I'm not working with Lumix, unfortunately. I'm not involved in the Lumix creators group and stuff like that. So I don't have no information. And even if I will have that information, I couldn't tell. So I couldn't tell you. So in any case, let's get to this firmware update and consider subscribing and commenting down below, and let's have a chat about what I'm about to come to talk about. So let's first talk about the 3 things they have all in common, the 3 things that they released and they all 3 cameras have in common, right? So the first thing is going to be Capture One. So Capture One tethering has been improved, and now you can basically transfer the files through Wi-Fi or through Ethernet port, which we know that these cameras don't have Ethernet port, but they have done a dongle. So basically a USB-C to Ethernet lock port. So basically in that way you can just have Ethernet connection to your camera and then have internet in your camera, which is pretty damn good and damn smart. It would have been super cool to just have an Ethernet port, but for all the things that these cameras have, I don't think there is a space for another port. That camera, it's so full of buttons and things. So, well, there is an Ethernet connection that you can have through the USB-C. So there you are. The focus stacking feature. So now you have a focus stacking feature that basically what it is that it captures basically using the electronic shooting, because this can be used only in electronic mode. Basically it will shoot probably 30 frames per second image. So you have an image, it's going to shoot the image 30 times in a second, where basically it's going to shoot a different focus point, and you will end up with a tack sharp image. So with a really deep focus image where you will have the whole image in focus, tack sharp, and no worries. And you can use that for product photography or for landscape. It might be a little bit more challenging if you have like movement on the frame, but you can try for sure to use it so that you can have, instead of like opening the aperture fully, you can basically use that function to actually control more the light and so on, and have everything in focus by even having a really low or high aperture, however you want to read that, right? The next point is HAVE recording, which is weird that they call it HAVE recording and not HAVE capturing, because it's a function that you usually have in pictures or only in photo mode, which is the same thing in this case. It's a function that I believe phones started to have it, like the iPhone, the Samsung phones. Now you are able to have HAVE into the camera too. What basically it is, HAVE is basically a JPEG but with boost. It's basically what in videos you have as a H.264, which it will be JPEG, and then you have H.265, which in this case will be HAVE. So basically it allows you to have a better quality and a better image at the cost of nothing. So you basically just saving space. While JPEG, depending on what resolution and how you're shooting, or dynamic range you have and everything, it's kind of a little bit heavier compression, in the sense that it's a bit heavier as a file, while with HEIF you have a smaller file with a greater image overall. So that basically, it's really cool. And there are, I think, still a couple of programs that don't read HEIF, but I think in this day and age, mostly all the major editing programs are able to eat HEIF. And if you're using HEIF, you're shooting in HEIF, most probably you are not looking into editing anyway. So that's be it. So you have HEIF, and then the frame markers have been expanded from 10 to 17, and it's pretty good. And I think between the 17 there is even a custom mode, so you can create your own custom frame marker, which it's quite amazing. The AF focus framing thing, from white, now you are able to choose 10 other different colors among red, blue, green. So that is a really good implementation, because there are cases where you might not be using the white framing for autofocus because you cannot see it properly because you're shooting, I don't know, in a really outcasting or like a really overcast place, and now you have the choice to shoot with different colors. The thing that all the YouTubers were so happy about and were raging about, S1RII C3 is here for the S1 Mark II, S1 Mark IIe, and the SR Mark II. And there are a couple of quirks, except the fact that everyone knew you gotta pay it through the DMW SFU 3A lock, which you just go on Panasonic website, you pay, and then you download it and you can install it. You can't use this in RAW, which I think is to be expected. I think nobody really expected that ARRI and Panasonic will allow you to really use it in RAW. So that is to be expected. And it is interesting, which this is not really a quirk, but it's interesting. I was talking with Kofi Yeboah because I was really interested in knowing like how different the dynamic range it is between the S1 Mark II and the ARRI sensor that he was using, right? And what he told me is that the dynamic range is pretty close. And I was just like, by seeing even the image that he actually posted, it looked really close. So I was really surprised and mesmerized about this, and it's really good. Obviously, you're gonna have the advantage of ARRI sensor because those are sensor designed purposefully or designed for cinema, right? So you're gonna have way more advantages like controlling your highlight roll off, or the highlights blowing out are totally different way and a bit more pleasing to watch than what a mirrorless sensor will actually display. So there are all the advantages that an ARRI sensor have over the S1 Mark II, but as a crash cam and not giving up so much on the dynamic range side, that is mind-blowing what Lumix and ARRI managed to do there. So chapeau to them. And oh, I forgot the door open there, wherever, not important. So now let's go straight with the S1R Mark II, right? So the S1R Mark II got basically the firmware update to bring it on par with the S1 Mark IIe and the S1II. So like the urban sport mode, delivery, and all the other things that the S1 Mark II lineup came out with, now everything is in line. The SR Mark II got it too, so we are not going to talk about that. But there are quite cool things that they have came out for all the three of them, you can shoot now RAW externally. All the three of them obviously have different sensors, so there are going to be some differences there. But one thing that is really cool now, you can shoot proxies when you're shooting RAW out of those cameras. So it's not only limited to the 4K image as it is on the S5IIX and the S5IIX, but now you can basically use proxies in all the flavors that you have in your camera, even in RAW. So that is really, really good. What did the S1RII Mark II got? So there is going to be a little bit of a quirk here, a little bit of a, let's say, downside for people who shoot in PAL, so European and probably majority part of the world. This camera basically got RAW 3x2, so RAW open gate, which now it brings really close to the Blackmagic system cameras. So open gate, RAW and B-RAW, 8K 8.1 up to 23.98, which for an European, you will basically just look at yourself and just like, wait, but that is an NTSC format. And then that will be right. So if you're shooting in Europe, this would not be available for you. You would not be able to shoot in the full 8.1K 3x2 open gate function at all. But what you can do is that you can shoot basically 7.2K up to 25 or 30 frames per second, depending where you are in the world. And that is oversampled. So you're still kind of getting an 8K image down sample to 7.2, right? So, or 7.2 upscaled to 8K anyway. So you're getting the image there, but for some reason there is probably some limitation in the sensor, or there was some limitation in the coding, or for some reason if you're shooting in PAL you cannot shoot at 8.1K. So just be aware on that, and that will be carry on in all the other functions in the camera. So now you are able to shoot 8.1K, not RAW but just standard mode, 3x2, but that is going to be again limited to 23.98 in NTSC mode. So if you are in PAL, you cannot shoot the full 8K open gate. Okay, you can shoot only 7.2K 3x2 up to 25 and 30 frames per second. So just be aware of that if you are in Europe and you want to shoot that open gate, you got to switch your camera into NTSC. So you will have the ability to do that, but you will have to switch to the American shooting frequency standards to be able to have the full readout of the sensor. If not, you're still gonna have a full readout but upscaled. Okay, so just be aware of that if you are in PAL, to just not get lost in your menu system because you can't find an 8K function. Okay, so now let's go to the S1IIE and let's let the S1II as last, because there is some really sweet thing they did there and we will talk about it soon. But what did the S1IIE basically got? So it got an open gate shooting mode in RAW too, so you can shoot 6K RAW with proxy recording up to 25 in PAL and 30 frames per second in NTSC. So that's really, really sweet, and that's mostly like what it got as its own separate firmware update. And then now let's talk about the Lumix S1 Mark II. The Lumix S1 Mark II is the one that got the most, in my opinion, sweeter thing. So it got the RAW 3x2 6K recording format up to 25 in PAL and 30 frames per second in NTSC mode. But It got a slow motion in RAW 2 now. Open gate 5.7K up to 50 frames per second in BAW or 60 frames per second in NTSC. So now the Lumix S1 Mark II has just got even a better and appealing thing to this, because there is no other camera out there that is able to output through HDMI RAW or slow motion RAW in B-RAW. So that is something really good, that finally, as DaVinci Resolve user, will be able to have B-RAW slow motion out of mirrorless cameras, and that is really good. Of course, now there are the Canon R6 Mark II came out with ProRes RAW 6K up to 60, and I believe all the other newer released after that got the same. So now it's cool that finally there is a B-RAW ability to have slow motion recording into an Atomos, or Atomos if you shoot ProRes RAW, or into a video assist if you are shooting in a B-RAW function. So I'm super happy for this, and this even pushed me more into how appealing this camera is becoming over and over. And most probably they are still going to come out with amazing firmware update to enhance the capabilities that this camera have, as we all know. But now, Lumix S5IIX, where is our firmware update? And in a future video, I will talk about why I canceled my S1 Mark II pre-order, because I did. I wanted to wait December to buy it, but then seeing how much there is around in this specific moment about this camera, I just don't want to really invest into it until I'm completely sure, until I have done my due diligence in researching properly and not getting into the hype of it. So I just want the hype to go down and then see what Lumix will say and what things will come out again before I invest, into this camera. Because here in Finland, if I decide to buy it, there is no way I can return it as soon as I open the box without losing money, because it just automatically becomes secondhand, and there is no way for me to rent it or to find people who actually are using it in Finland, because there are not many Lumix shooters here in Finland for one reason or another. I found 2 people, and we are 3, sorry, counting me, here in the Helsinki region, and that was so hard to find, and I even found it through the Lumix Instagram. So yeah, if someone has an S1II and you live in Finland or close by and you're passing through Finland, please hit me up on Instagram and let's have a chat, or through email or whatever. Let's have a chat, and if I can get to try out this camera, that would be amazing, because there is so much buzz going on now, and I don't have, especially as a father of a family, and just moved in a new apartment, and we have spending a lot of money here. I don't have the capabilities of just throwing money out there and then losing money, right? Especially because I have a short movie I'm working on. You will hear about it pretty soon, because the production is going to start in a month, and it will be through crowdfunding, so I might need your help on that. If you want to help out, if not, completely fine by just following the journey. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Hope you taking good care of you. I know that this is a weird period now. Well, now it's summer, so hope you're enjoying in Finland. Not summer yet, just raining, and yeah, I don't know when we will get to enjoy the summer too. It is what it is, I guess. But hey, take good care of yourself and stay safe. I'm gonna see you in the next one.